English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, your host, and as always, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Julia.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. Jason, we have a really interesting topic for our listeners today.
Absolutely. Today, we're going to talk about how to improve your speaking and conversational skills in English. This is something every learner wants, right?
Yes, speaking confidently in English can feel challenging, but with the right steps, anyone can improve. And the best part is, it's fun when you practice the right way.
That's true. And today, we'll give you practical tips, examples, and mini exercises that you can start using immediately to make your English conversations smoother and more natural.
Exactly. So whether you're talking to friends, colleagues, or even strangers, by the end of this episode, you'll feel more confident about speaking in English.
All right, let's dive in. Are you ready, Julia?
I'm ready. Let's help our listeners become better speakers today.
So, Julia, before we jump into tips and exercises, I think it's important to understand why speaking skills really matter.
Absolutely, Jason. Speaking well isn't just about using correct grammar or vocabulary. It's about communicating your ideas clearly.
Exactly. When you can express yourself confidently in English, it opens up so many opportunities, like making new friends, doing better at work, or even traveling more easily.
Yes, and it also helps you think in English naturally. The more you speak, the more your brain starts to get used to forming sentences in English instead of translating from your native language.
I totally agree. And there's another big reason: confidence. Speaking English confidently makes you feel more comfortable in social situations. Even if you make small mistakes, people will understand you. And that's what matters most.
Exactly. I remember when I first started speaking English, I was so nervous, but the more I practiced, the more I realized it's not about being perfect. It's about communicating and connecting with others.
That's such a good point. And speaking skills also improve your listening and thinking skills. When you speak, you start noticing sentence structures, vocabulary, and pronunciation patterns, which helps you understand English better overall.
Right. So in short, improving your speaking skills boosts your confidence, helps you think in English, and improves your communication in everyday life.
Exactly, Julia. And now that we know why it's so important, let's talk about the first step to improve your speaking and conversational skills.
Yes, step 1 is something that everyone can start doing today. Let's dive in.
All right, Julia, let's start with step 1. Start small and simple. This is one of the most important tips for beginners.
Yes, many learners make the mistake of trying to speak perfect English right away. But the truth is, you don't need to use long or difficult sentences.
Exactly. Start with short sentences and common phrases. For example, instead of saying, "I am feeling exceptionally joyful today because the weather is delightfully sunny," you can just say, "I'm happy today. The sun is shining."
That's a great example, Jason. Simple sentences are easier to remember, easier to speak, and people understand them perfectly.
Another tip is to focus on daily conversations. Think about greetings, ordering food, asking for directions. These are all small, simple sentences you can practice every day.
Right. For example, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Can I have a coffee, please? These are short, easy, and useful phrases that you can use right away.
And the best part is, when you start small, you gain confidence quickly. You feel like, hey, I can speak English. And that feeling motivates you to keep learning.
Exactly. And once you're comfortable with small sentences, you can slowly combine them into longer sentences and more natural conversations.
So remember, listeners, start small, use simple sentences, and practice them every day. That's the first step toward speaking English naturally and confidently.
Yes, and don't worry about making mistakes. Just start speaking, even with small sentences.
Perfect. Now that we've covered step 1, let's move to step 2. Listen and repeat, which is all about improving pronunciation and fluency. All right, Julia, now let's move on to step 2. Listen and repeat. This step is very powerful for improving your speaking skills.
Yes, Jason. Listening to English helps you hear how sentences are formed, how words are pronounced, and how native speakers naturally talk.
Exactly. And after listening, you should repeat what you hear. It could be a sentence from a podcast, a movie, or even a short YouTube video. The goal is to mimic the pronunciation, tone, and rhythm.
Right. For example, if you hear someone say, "I'm going to the store," try saying it exactly the same way. Don't worry about being perfect. Just copy the sound and rhythm.
And the more you repeat, the more your brain starts to remember natural sentence patterns, which makes speaking easier over time.
Yes. You can even pause videos or podcasts, repeat sentences, and practice speaking aloud. This small practice every day can make a big difference in a few weeks.
Exactly. So remember, listeners, listen carefully, repeat aloud, and try to sound like native speakers. It's simple, but very effective.
And this step also helps with your listening skills, so you're learning 2 things at once: listening and speaking.
Perfect. Now that we know how important listening and repeating is, let's move on to step 3. Practice speaking every day, where we talk about daily practice routines. All right, Julia. Step 3 is practice speaking every day. This is where real improvement happens.
Absolutely, Jason. Listening and repeating is great, but the key to becoming fluent is actually speaking regularly. Even just a few minutes a day makes a big difference.
Yes, you can start with micro-practice sessions. For example, talk to yourself while making breakfast, or describe what you're doing in English.
Right. Something like, "I'm cutting vegetables, I'm making a sandwich." It sounds simple, but it trains your brain to think and speak in English automatically.
And don't worry about speaking perfectly. The goal is consistency, not perfection. Even a short 5-minute daily practice is better than one long session once a week.
Exactly. And you can also record yourself. Listen to your own voice and notice pronunciation or sentence flow. This helps you improve faster.
Another idea is to practice with a friend or language partner. Even a 5-minute chat every day helps you gain confidence in real conversations.
Yes, and when you make daily speaking a habit, your brain starts to think in English naturally, which is the ultimate goal.
So remember, listeners, speak every day, even if it's just a few sentences, and gradually increase your practice. Small steps consistently lead to big improvements.
Exactly, Jason. Now that we know how important daily practice is, let's move to step 4. Ask questions and show interest, which will make your conversations much more engaging.
All right, Julia. Step 4 is ask questions and show interest. This is key to having natural conversations.
Yes. When you ask questions, it shows the other person that you care about what they're saying, and it keeps the conversation flowing.
Exactly. For example, instead of just saying, "I like movies," you can ask, "What's your favorite movie?" This invites the other person to talk and creates a back-and-forth dialogue.
Right. And you can use follow-up questions, too. If someone says, "I like reading," you can ask, "What kind of books do you enjoy?" Simple questions like this make conversations more interesting.
And another tip is to show genuine interest. Listen carefully and respond naturally, like, "That's amazing," or "Wow, tell me more about it." Small reactions make a big difference.
Yes, this step not only improves your speaking skills but also helps you build stronger connections with people in English.
Exactly. So remember, listeners, ask questions, show interest, and keep the conversation going. It's one of the easiest ways to sound natural.
Perfect. And now that we know how to engage in conversations, our next step is step 5. Learn useful phrases and idioms, which will make your speech even more fluent.
All right, Julia. Step 5 is learn useful phrases and idioms. This is a fun way to make your English sound more natural.
Absolutely, Jason. Instead of learning just single words, it's better to learn phrases or expressions that people use in daily conversations.
Exactly. For example, instead of saying, I'm very tired, you can say, I'm completely exhausted. Or instead of, it's very easy, you can say, it's a piece of cake.
Yes, and idioms like these make your speech more colorful and closer to how native speakers actually talk.
Another tip is to practice these phrases in context. For example, if someone asks how your day was, you can say, it was a piece of cake, if it was easy, or I was running around all day, if it was busy.
Exactly. And don't worry if you don't remember all of them at once. Start with 3 to 5 phrases and use them often in your conversations.
That's a great tip, Julia. So, listeners, learning and using useful phrases and idioms will make your English sound natural and confident.
Yes, and once you're comfortable with these, your conversations will feel much smoother.
Perfect. Now, let's move on to step 6. Correct mistakes without fear, which is very important for every English learner. All right, Julia, step 6 is very important. Correct mistakes without fear. Many learners hesitate to speak because they're afraid of making mistakes.
Exactly, Jason. But the truth is, making mistakes is a natural part of learning. Every time you make a mistake, you have a chance to learn and improve.
Yes. For example, if you say, he go to school, instead of he goes to school, don't feel embarrassed. Just correct it in your next sentence.
Right. And another tip is to ask for feedback from friends, teachers, or language partners. They can gently correct you, and that helps you avoid repeating the same mistakes.
Also, remember that fluency is more important than perfection. People will understand you even if your grammar isn't perfect, as long as you keep speaking.
Absolutely. Confidence grows when you embrace mistakes as learning opportunities instead of fearing them.
So listeners, speak boldly, correct yourself, and don't let mistakes stop you. Every small step helps you improve.
Exactly. And now that we've talked about handling mistakes, our next step is step 7. Practice with real people, which is a fun and effective way to boost your speaking skills.
All right, Julia. Step 7 is one of my favorites. Practice with real people. This is where your English really comes alive.
Yes, Jason. Talking with real people helps you apply what you've learned in real-life situations, not just in your head.
Exactly. You can practice with friends, classmates, colleagues, or even online language partners. The key is to use English in real conversations, not just practice alone.
Right. And it doesn't have to be long conversations. Even short chats like, "How was your day?" or "What do you like to eat?" can make a big difference.
Also, real conversations help you improve your listening, thinking, and speaking at the same time. You'll learn how people naturally respond, and that teaches you the flow of conversation.
Yes, and don't worry if you make mistakes. Real people are usually very understanding, and each conversation helps you gain confidence.
Another tip is to join conversation clubs or online platforms where learners can practice with native speakers or other learners. It's fun, and very effective.
Absolutely. The more you practice with real people, the more natural your English will become.
So remember, listeners, start talking with real people, even if it's just small conversations. This step will really boost your speaking and confidence.
Perfect. Now that we've covered practicing with real people, let's move on to common mistakes in conversation, which will help you avoid some pitfalls.
All right, Julia. Now let's talk about some common mistakes learners make in conversations and how to avoid them.
Yes, Jason. One big mistake is talking too little because of fear. Some learners stay quiet because they worry about making mistakes.
Exactly. But remember, it's better to speak a little imperfectly than not speak at all. People will understand you, and you'll learn faster when you actually use English.
Another common mistake is using too many long or complicated sentences. Sometimes learners try to sound perfect and get stuck mid-sentence.
Yes, it's much better to use simple, clear sentences. Short sentences are easier to say and easier for others to understand.
A third mistake is not listening properly. Some learners focus too much on what they will say next instead of really listening.
Exactly. Active listening is key. When you listen carefully, you can respond naturally, ask relevant questions, and keep the conversation flowing.
So listeners, remember, don't be afraid to speak, use simple sentences, and listen actively. Avoiding these common mistakes will make your conversations much smoother.
Perfect. And now that we know the mistakes to watch out for, let's talk about how to stay motivated and connect these tips to real life. All right, Julia, now let's talk about motivation and connecting these tips to real life. This is what keeps learners going.
Yes, Jason. Improving your speaking skills is not just a task, it changes your life. Imagine being able to talk to new friends, attend meetings confidently, or travel and communicate easily.
Exactly. Every small step you take, like practicing a few sentences a day or asking questions in a conversation, brings you closer to real-life success.
And it's important to celebrate small wins. Even if you spoke for 1 minute without hesitation or used a new phrase correctly, that's progress.
Absolutely. Motivation comes from seeing your improvement. Keep a journal or record yourself to track how much better you're becoming over time.
Yes, and remember, the more you practice, the more natural English becomes. Speaking confidently opens doors in friendships, career, and life experiences.
So listeners, stay motivated, practice consistently, and connect your learning to real-life situations. That's the best way to improve your speaking and conversational skills.
Exactly. And now we have a fun mini practice activity for our listeners that will put all these tips into action.
All right, Julia. Now it's time for a mini practice activity for our listeners. This will help them use what they've learned today.
Yes, this activity is simple and fun. We're going to do a short dialogue practice. Listeners can repeat after us or even try it with a friend.
Okay, here's the first one. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How about you?
Perfect. Now a little longer. 1. Hi. What did you do today?
I went to the park and read a book. What about you?
Great. You can practice these short conversations every day. Try changing the words or topics to make it more interesting.
Yes. And remember, the goal is to speak naturally without worrying about mistakes. Even if you make small errors, you are learning and improving.
Exactly. So listeners, take 2 to 3 minutes every day, practice these mini dialogues, and you'll see improvement in your speaking skills very quickly.
Perfect. And now that we've practiced a bit, let's move to our final section, outro and goodbye, where we wrap everything up.
All right, Julia. That's it for today's episode on improving your speaking and conversational skills.
Yes, we hope our tips, steps, and mini practice activity will help our listeners speak English more confidently every day.
Remember, listeners, start small, practice daily, listen, repeat, and don't be afraid of mistakes. Every step counts.
Absolutely. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and use these tips in real-life conversations. You'll see improvement sooner than you think.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this podcast if you found it helpful.
Yes, and we'll see you in the next episode with more fun and useful English tips.
Bye, everyone.